Some things simply have no reason to exist. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 video game tie-ins no one asked for. For this list, we'll be looking at gaming-related tie-ins that nobody wanted but everyone got anyway. Number 10. Hitman Agent 47.
Feel pretty good for a dead man, John. Almost as good as you.
Yeah? Well, the thing is, I'm special.
Let's see.
In theory, Hitman is not the strangest gaming property to adapt into a movie. In practice, however, Agent 47 has had a horrible time on the big screen. While there was at least some pre-release excitement for 2007's critically panned Hitman, Agent 47 was just kind of announced out of nowhere. Ironically, that's about as close to the franchise's stealth roots as the film would get. Marketed as a generic action film, Hitman Agent 47 was a completely baffling adaptation in its own right. But to make matters worse, it came out at a time when the games were at somewhat of a low point, following after 2012's divisive Absolution. Number 9. Shaq Fu. During the 90s, Shaq was incredibly popular, so much so, the basketball player starred in a superhero film and his own game. Rather than going down the sports game route because, Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq Fu was a fighting game that allowed Shaq to live out his dream of being a martial arts master. The resulting release has gone down as one of the worst games in the genre. Perhaps as a result of its infamy, Shaq Fu inexplicably got a sequel in 2018, which was also poorly received. Number 8. Little Britain, the video game.
He likes the water, but he's not a strong swimmer. It's really doggy pack.
Over the years, many great TV shows have been adapted into mediocre games, but the chosen licenses are usually either action-oriented or for kids. A mini-game collection based on a British sketch show is anything but family-friendly was a particularly strange idea for a tie-in, especially since Little Britain had already finished its UK run by 2007. Little Britain's anti-culture satire was a terrible match for a video game, which maintained the source material's abhorrence for good taste but failed to preserve any of its comedic value. While Little Britain managed to strike a chord with a wider audience, Little Britain the video game only managed to faceplant into the floor repeatedly.
We don't want your sort round here. Thank you, Mutanwe.
Number 7. Worlds of Power, Metal Gear. Spanning 10 novelizations, Worlds of Power tried to motivate kids to read by splashing Ninja Gaiden or Bionic Commando on the cover. Some of the novels were pretty decent, all things considered, but then there was Metal Gear. Released in 1990 and based on the NES port, Metal Gear tried its absolute best to remove any of the mystique surrounding the franchise and Solid Snake, who was given the name of Justin Haley because of reasons. Rather than create a standalone story, Metal Gear tried to incorporate nearly all the game's levels into the story, resulting in a book that reads like a fever dream. Number 6. Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
What is that?
If you're gonna get us out of here, you better do it now.
Considering Final Fantasy's entries usually do their own thing, this series is a decent candidate for an original film. Unfortunately, despite boasting some impressive animation for the time, The Spirits Within nonetheless bombed at the box office and failed to impress critics. Even with the Final Fantasy trademark stamped on the film, The Spirits Within's setting and aesthetic had very little in common with Square Enix's JRPG franchise. With the film coming across more like a space opera than something reminiscent of Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within seemed like it was just using the license to try and attract an established audience. Number 5. Resident Evil: Extinction.
For those of us left, staying on the road seemed the only way to stay alive.
By the time Extinction rolled out, any pretense that the Resident Evil films were accurately adapting the games had completely evaporated. Despite some characters sharing the same names and the occasional appearance by a recognizable tyrant, By 2007, Resident Evil existed as both a video game and movie series that had practically nothing to do with each other. Extinction and its 3 sequels did fine at the box office, but the film series became something to be ignored by fans of the main games. It also didn't help that the games were simultaneously becoming more action-oriented during this period, so any association with the movies would have been seen as a negative. Number 4. Mass Effect Deception. Designed to expand on the game's established universe, the Mass Effect novels are generally regarded as canon. As the 4th novel and the first not penned by the lead writer of the original 2 Mass Effect games, Deception was immediately greeted with a huge uproar from the fan base. It was littered with so many canonical errors that BioWare had to issue an apology and promised to patch these errors in future revisions of the novel. In short, Deception served as the worst possible advertisement for Mass Effect 3, which dropped just a bit more than a month after the book.
Commander Shepard's been under constant surveillance since coming back to Earth. No way they've communicated since.
Number 3. Bubsy.
Oh, come on. You know I'm your hero.
You're not.
Well, of course I am. I'm your hero, and you're my sidekick.
Bubsy could only have been born in a post-Sonic the Hedgehog world, and the Bobcat tried his absolute darndest to become the next big gaming mascot. Not happy to just take the video game world by storm, during his debut year, Bubsy also tried his paws at show business by starring in a TV pilot that was surely going to be a smash hit. In case you're curious, it was sponsored by Taco Bell. For some reason that had absolutely nothing to do with the episode's quality, the TV series was not picked up, and Bubsy had to be satisfied with just releasing video games that almost nobody wanted. Ironically, the pilot episode was entitled, "What Could Possibly Go Wrong?"
Okie dokie, Arnold. Time to rise and shine, old pal of mine.
Number 2. Street Fighter, the movie. Without the benefit of hindsight, Street Fighter's popularity in the early 90s justified a movie adaptation. Rather than cut its losses after the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie failed to impress, however, Capcom adapted Street Fighter the movie into a game, with 2 rather different versions being released on consoles and in arcades. Despite the franchise spending millions of dollars to end up in the same place that it started, Street Fighter the movie was a far worse version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. The fantastic Street Fighter Alpha was also released in 1995, which did little to make the movie seem more appealing.
Fight!
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few dishonorable mentions. Fight Club, Catwoman, StarCraft Ghost Nova. Want more video game content? Check out our gaming channel Mojo Plays and discover games and ideas you never knew existed. With more lists, breakdowns, and our latest series, Arcade Roulette.
Justin and John are in!
Oh.
Hey, is that Porky Pig? There's a lot of things being ripped off in this game.
Number 1. Uwe Boll video game movies. During the 2000s, Uwe Boll seemingly made it his mission to create as many video game movies as possible. After the filmmaker put his mark on the genre with House of the Dead, in 2003, Blood Rain, Dungeon Siege, Alone in the Dark, Postal, and Far Cry all got the Boll treatment. In other words, the movies were universally awful, barely made anything at the box office, and rarely respected the source material. Even though they seemed to have no audience besides the morbidly curious, Boll somehow made more than 10 of these films, only pausing occasionally to non-video game inspired movies like Rampage. In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.